Hello again, everybody. Um, I missed yesterday because yesterday was a horrendous and horrible day, and I went to the doctor today, and I'm not going to do an update vlog for this one. Um, I I have something I want to rant about. Um, So, yes, I will make another vlog just to catch up and release it later tonight or maybe very early tomorrow morning uh, about updates about me and what my doc said and all that fun stuff. Um, what I want to talk about right now is, um, for those of you who don't know, I've I've been a member of Team Human since Team Human wasn't even Team Human. I'm a big fan of Geek and Sundry, and I'm a huge Critical Role fan. But when Zach, the Overlord, the guy that ran the Twitch channel, um, left, and he was the guy that started the Twitch channel. He left. He left to become the CEO of a new company um, called Hyper RPG. It was a new Twitch channel mostly devoted to RPGs in general. I think they've broadened their content a little bit since then. They have Cineverse, which is about um, um, movies and stuff like that. Excuse me. But for the most part, the core of it is RPGs, and I went over to support them with my Twitch Prime membership because I like Zach. I think he's a great person, and I think that what he's doing over there is 100% the direction that I would want to see a company like that go in. He's very much about um, uh, creating relationships with the fans and very much a relationship based company. And I think that's something that we don't see a lot. And the other reason that I started watching Hyper RPG a lot more than I used to is they did this thing where if they got enough donations during a a session for one of their shows called Vanquished. It was a superhero RPG based in the Valiant Comics universe. They would add one of their subscribers. They would add him or her as an NPC, and Zach would write the NPC and perform it and everything like that. It wasn't like a guest starring or anything like that. It was just it would show up every so often. And I won one of those, and I got to be the super badass ninja. I had no input on it whatsoever, but I cannot tell you how happy I was with how Zach created the character. I probably, were I playing the character, I probably would have been a little bit snarkier and a little bit added a little bit more comedy. He played a very he not really a serious, but a very determined character. But he was so cool, and I loved it and loved it and loved it. Anyway, so very very long story short, one of the party members there is a Twitch streamer. Who goes by the name That Bronze Girl, who was wonderful on Vanquish. And not only that, I'm finding out now, she has been a D&D veteran for a very long time. She's been DMing for a long time. She actually is the DM of their new Open Legends RPG show, which I'm going to watch religiously because I think the system itself is such a cool system. And the one episode of the kind of limited series that they did that I did get to watch, I really enjoyed. I thought it was really good. She is right now talking on, I can't even remember what the podcast is called. I was just watching it. Anyway, she's on a Twitch podcast type thing. It talks about RPGs in general, and they're asking her questions, and she's giving out, her thoughts on different things and stuff like that. And there were a couple points that she made that I vehemently disagree with. And I understand exactly where she's coming from, being uh, not being an actor, basically. My background is in acting for close to, God, how long was it? About a decade of my life, I devoted myself almost entirely to acting and learning the craft. And the first time I went to college, I majored in theater and I minored in music. And so acting is a very, very big part of my life. I still study as much as I can, and I'm still I still have monologues that I brush up on and I practice and things like that in case I get a chance to do it again. And one of the reasons I do my YouTube channel is it is an outlet for me to perform, and I love performing. And for an actor in general, an RPG is a very, very different experience than for let's say a min maxer, or for just a straight up, just a GM or a player or something like that. Because from being an actor and learning not only how to create characters but how to embody them, and how to create motivation and show motivation and things like that. The act of rolling a character and all those things is a very different experience. And I think it's a fantastic one. It's one of the reasons that I enjoy role playing so much. But she said a few things on there that I personally wanted to refute. That bronze girl, if you are watching this, first of all, why are you watching this? You have so many more better ways to spend your time than watching a little YouTuber like me. But if you are watching this, thank you very much. I do appreciate everything that you say, and I understand that you not only do you have a very long, I guess, pedigree in Dungeons and Dragons and role playing in general, but you also have a lot of experience, probably more experience than I do as far as Twitch as a medium, and I respect that. However, I respectfully disagree with a couple of the things that you said. The first thing that kind of irked me as soon as I heard it was they asked her, "Are there any people that or shows or anything that she takes inspiration from and things like that?" And she listed a couple Netflix shows and TV shows and movies, and she mentioned that she takes a lot of influence from comic books and stuff like that. And then the host kind of redirected the question to where I think it was going, based on the wording of the question itself, and go, well, what about things like Critical Role or encounter role play and stuff like that? She started talking about it, and for the most part was very complimentary of it, saying that she really thought it was really good. And then she made it very clear that she's like, but there are moments on there that are completely pre-written. Like they're not coming up with these lines on their own. And to that statement, and just the idea behind it, that's what good actors do. And Critical Role. Now, I cannot speak for Encounter Roleplay because I don't watch them. I cannot speak for a bunch of other ones. I can speak for myself, where we've had some very I've had some very cinematic things happen in my games. Not just the ones that I stream, but the ones that I have played at conventions where it was just a bunch of random people that got together. I've had some incredibly cinematic, touching moments happen simply because we had people that were very invested and understood storytelling well. And I've seen it happen on Critical Role. Matt Mercer has said time and time again, this stuff isn't scripted beyond the pre-writing that he does. What a normal GM prep work would be is what Matt Mercer does. He spends a lot of time preparing a lot of different scenarios, and he creates NPCs and things like that. And because he is not just an actor, but a phenomenal actor, he has been creating characters for so long and so often that it becomes second nature to him. It's the same as watching any master perform their work. A lot of people watch a master do it and assume that it's easy because they make it look effortless. And that's what Matt and that entire crew does. There isn't a single person on that crew that does not have just a list of roles that they've done longer than both of my arms. And that's the reason why there are certain points where they just have these amazing cinematic moments that you sit there and go, oh my God, that was amazing. I can't believe that happened. This feels like I'm watching, an actual television show. They couldn't have done it better if it was written correctly. And a lot of there's apparently a very vocal minority of people that assume that there's collusion behind the scenes where Matt's going, okay, guys, I'm going to do this, and I think it'd be really cool for this, and I think it'd be really cool for this, and this, and this, and this, and this. And that simply isn't happening. We know this because, again, Matt's told us, and he's not going to lie to us about it. It wouldn't break the illusion or anything like that. And again, I know it happens because I've seen it happen, and it happens more often when you have true masters doing this. A lot of people don't realize that the reason Critical Role is successful has nothing to do with Geek and Sundry. It has nothing to do with the fact that it's on Twitch. It has nothing to do with the overlays or the minis. Or the set or anything like that. I'm not saying that those things don't add to the enjoyment of it, and I'm not saying that the people that put all that time and effort into those things do not deserve some of the credit for the show being as successful as it is. But the reason that Critical Role is successful is because you have a group of professional actors who are using what they do for a living, what they are masters at, to entertain people and to entertain themselves. And because of that, they create epic stories because they understand story structure, because they've had to create it time and time again. They create these characters that we connect with because they have been forced to do that over and over and over again. The acting profession is one of the most competitive, definitely in the U.S., probably in the world, because there's always going to be hundreds, most of the time thousands, if not tens of thousands, more actors than there are roles for them to fill. And so if you want to be an actor, you don't have to be good. You have to be great. You have to be amazing. And that's the minimum before you start getting work. There has to be something about you that sets you apart from 1,000 other people that are going for the exact same role you are. So that's your bare minimum. Now, these guys, Matt and Liam and Laura and Travis and that entire group of people, these are not bare minimum actors. These are people that have made a living for it off of their acting for decades. This is their entire profession. So when they are put into situations where they can start seeing storylines forming and they can start seeing things, they go into actor mode. They're already in their character. They already know what their character will do in any given moment. They know how their character would act. They know what verbiage they would use. That's part of them just being actors. I know, especially if you do theater acting, which is where I got my start. One of the things that you learn very, very quickly is once the curtain opens, that idea of, well, the show must go on. Well, yeah, that's very true because you have an audience sitting there waiting. And if something goes wrong, if some technical thing goes wrong, if someone flubs their line, if someone misses their cue or something like that, the only time the audience finds out about it is when you have bad actors on stage that bring attention to it. A good actor is so in character and knows exactly what their character would do in that situation that it doesn't faze them at all. They simply continue acting as if this is what was supposed to happen, and they improvise and do things like that. And that's what these guys are doing, is they're improvising on a level that your regular role player can't. Not because it's impossible or anything like that. It's because they've had years and years and years of practice. It's kind of like comparing me, whom I'm a martial artist hobbyist type thing. I've been studying martial arts for over a decade and a half. I practice when I can, but I would never consider myself anywhere near a master of any of the styles that I practice. I can make myself look pretty good, but I'm mostly self-taught. Now, if you get me with I've got a staff. I've got a bow staff leaning up against the wall on the other side of here that I use for training and aerobic exercise. Staff spitting's great for that. If you put me in a room with someone like Jason David Frank, who is a professional martial artist, he was an MMA fighter. Most of you guys would know him because he was the Green Ranger on Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. He teaches martial arts for a living. He has a school, a couple of schools actually. They're called Rising Sun Karate. That's what he does. If you put him and me in a room and you give us the exact same tools and you give us the exact same instruction, it will be two very, very different experiences. I can probably do most of what he does, other than flexibility, things like that. It's simply because I don't have it. But as far as a staff, like the movements and everything, I can probably do most of the things that he does because I'm not bad. Can I do them at the level that he can? Absolutely not, because that's what he's been doing for 20 some odd years. He may even be into 30 years now. He is a phenomenal martial artist. He was before he started in Power Rangers, and now that he has had years and years and years to hone his craft and really turn it into something amazing, he's light years beyond anything I will probably ever be able to do, and that's what it looks like. And if you get someone that knows nothing about martial arts and they see that, they're instantly their first thoughts are going to be something to the effect of, well, he has some kind of advantage because there's no possible way he can do that. I just saw a video of this guy. He was kind of portly, but he was doing all of these parkour tricks and jumping off of buildings and stuff like that and doing butterfly twists and things like that. Very acrobatic maneuvers. And the comment section was, wow, he's disobeying the laws of physics and stuff like that. And because they're looking at him and they're making a judgment going, well, I look like that. And there's no possible way that I could do that. So obviously he has to be cheating somehow. This has to be, maybe he's wearing a suit and he's actually not that fat, or maybe it's this. No. You have, if you really want to see something really kind of blow your mind, look up Sammo Hung. He is a martial artist and actor from China. He's worked with Jackie Chan a lot. I believe at one point he was on the Jackie Chan stunt team. He has a very large frame. And so he looks very fat, not like morbidly obese, but he's a large guy. If you look up the show Martial Law, it was a television show. It only lasted 2 seasons, but I used to love it because he would do these aerial maneuvers, and you would see him do these amazing martial arts moves that you would think someone that size shouldn't be able to do, and yet he did them. He didn't just do them; he did them effortlessly. He made it look easy to be able to just sit there and flip through the air and turn anything into a weapon and things like that. He was brilliant. And he's a perfect example of appearances can be deceiving, and what you think is necessary to do something isn't actually true. You don't have to be in peak physical condition. You don't have to look like a male model to be a very, very talented martial artist. You have to understand how your body works, and you have to understand how the system works that you're learning, and you have to make that system work for you. The same is true about acting. The same is true about Twitch. The same is true about everything. You have to understand what you can do. You have to understand the system that you are attempting to learn, and you have to understand what things are going to work for you and what things aren't going to work for you. Yeah, the idea that Critical Role is scripted or anything, no, not any more scripted than like my games that I run, where if I have a plot line that's going to feature a character, I will have a conversation with them where I will go, hey, by the way, I need to know a little bit more about your backstory because it's going to show up later. I don't tell them how or anything. I don't give them any ideas or anything, but I go, hey, I'd like to know a little bit more about this aspect of your backstory, simply because I don't want to change their backstory for them. I want them to have complete control over what their character is. And that's as far as it ever goes. And it's had some pretty amazing things. I threw someone that used to be dead from one of the characters' backstories, and it gave them a really cool thing. I've got some other things planned as soon as all this stops. So yeah, the other thing I wanted to talk about is she started talking about what is it that makes Twitch-based RPGs entertaining, and what is it that is required to have a successful Twitch show. Now, the two shows that I run, Tyranny of Dragons and the Kingdom of Mikhail Isles, I will not even attempt to say that those are massively successful shows. If we have more than like 3 or 4 viewers, I'm very happy. I'm working on ways to, I guess, market them a little bit better than I have been. But I think the shows themselves are solid, and I think the players themselves really enjoy what's happening and enjoy what's going on. So the idea that, and I'm going to paraphrase quite a few things here, especially since my mind isn't working all that well. I took my Valium just a little while ago, and it's really, really starting to kick in. That bronze girl mentioned, you are playing for an audience, and so there are all these sacrifices that you have to make, in order to make it enjoyable, and you have to have this and you have to have that, and you don't. The thing that makes Critical Role compelling has nothing to do with any quote-unquote sacrifices they made for the camera. The thing that makes Critical Role compelling is you have a bunch of people that are very dedicated to telling a great story. And that is what keeps people coming back. Now, there are sometimes when, putting in that zany character every so often is going to get people to come in and things like that. And there are, certain things you can do if you really want to get into the quote unquote meta of it. There are certain things that will just tend to make it easier to market. Like if one day I was, just show up on stream and mention, hey, I'm going to have a guest character today. This is Matthew Mercer. I would have great ratings for that particular episode because I brought someone very famous on. And that's a very effective way. If the entire point of your show is to just always have the highest numbers physically possible, first of all, you're not going to succeed because no one that goes into business simply to win ever does. That's not how the world works. And second of all, you're going to have to constantly be changing what you're doing. If you really want to succeed, you have to do basically what HyperRPG has been doing for a while. What I used to do when I was in management, which is figure out what your purpose is. If you're on Twitch, figure out what your purpose is. Why are you doing it on Twitch? Is it to entertain the audience? Is it to entertain yourselves? Is it to tell a great story? Figure out your purpose for being there, and then everything else that takes away from that purpose, you need to trim or modify so that it gets that purpose. If your entire purpose is simply to entertain an audience, you are going to be beholden to the fact that all of your creativity and all of your ability is limited by what other people want. You are going to be controlled entirely by other people. You don't really want a motivation that involves you forcing yourself to do what other people want you to do, because it's not a sustainable model. So I generally tend to recommend have that as maybe a secondary objective or secondary purpose. Your primary purpose really should be something else. And if you're doing an RPG, my personal opinion on this is your purpose, if you're streaming an RPG online through Twitch or through anything else, your purpose should be to tell a great story. And in order to do that, you have to understand what makes a great story. And that involves doing a lot of different things. Do some research, read books that you really enjoy. And don't just read them as stories. Look at them from a mechanical perspective. What aspects of the story structure really worked well? What made you identify with this character and made you want to see what was going on? What made this part exciting to you? And that's really, really hard to do, especially if it's something that you've grown up with and you've never quite learned how to do that. It's one of the advantages of having a background in acting and an education in acting, is that something that you are taught very early on, is how to dissect a script and how to really read a character and understand character growth and things like that. So yeah, if you want to be quote unquote successful on Twitch, there's a lot of luck involved. There's a lot of marketing involved that I'm not going to get into here because it's really, really technical. And obviously I haven't mastered it, or else I'd be a lot bigger on Twitch than I am. But if you want to create a great Twitch show that's RPG based, focus on the story, focus on the characters, make sure your characters understand that they're not there to be super, super funny all the time or do crazy things that people don't believe, that they're there to tell the story of their character, to watch that character grow and change, because that is what has kept people coming back to Critical Role over and over and over again. It hasn't been, the fact that Matt Mercer is really pretty, or that Travis Willingham's voice is really funny for Grog, or that Sam, sings really funny songs. All of those are definite draws, and they will get people to come in for a session or two. But the thing that keeps people coming back is we've seen Vax grow from this very kind of scared, very walled off character who only really let his sister in, and didn't really have anything to live for, and so he really he really had no stakes in life, and go from that to this incredibly committed, deep character who now not only has a purpose, but has ties to quite a few different people that give him a reason not just to continue on, but to continue living. And I don't believe he had that at the beginning. And you can say that about every single character. You can see every single character has changed and grown in the year and a half that these guys have been doing this. And that's why people keep coming back. It's not because, the Black Powder Merchant is so, Victor is the most amazing character ever. And it's not because, Ashley was, in that one game that everybody liked. No, it's because these guys are very, very committed to telling amazing stories. And that's what it is. And they make it look easy, and it 100% isn't, but it's because they're masters at what they do. And while, yes, they have admitted to planning and stuff like that for combat and stuff like that. They are all very serious about the idea of metagaming and things like that, and they're very against it. Um, and so, no, it's not scripted. They don't have certain scenes. They're like, oh, 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 oh. Beyond what any other role-playing game would have prepared. I have eventualities for certain situations that the characters that I play in D&D, if they were to get into certain situations, I already know how they would act. Part of that's from my acting background. Um, and the NPCs and stuff like that that I create for my games, I already know what they're going to do in certain situations because I have that luxury as the DM. If the players do something completely backwards that I wasn't expecting, then I have to kind of think on the fly. I actually had written in a portion in one of my games. I don't know if I told the players this yet, but there was an entire race of people that they had the chance to rescue that would have come into play much later in the campaign as allies in an upcoming conflict. And because of actions that they took, the entire race was killed down to the last member. They don't exist in the world anymore. And so, yeah, stuff like that happens all the time. And it was a very cinematic scene then because, again, I am an actor. And when they give me the prompt that I'm looking for, I'll go, all right, I can do this. And when they don't, I can improvise through it and make some very, very memorable things. So anyway, those are just the things that I wanted to mention. Again, absolutely nothing against that bronze girl. I think she is a phenomenal role player. The few times that I've actually seen her DM, I think she's been amazing. I haven't had a chance to watch her DM a ton, so I don't know her DMing style. But I very, very strongly disagree with the idea, first of all, that Critical Role is scripted. And a lot of what she said about how to be popular on Twitch, where she mentioned specifically you have to script things because you have an audience and stuff like that. I don't agree with that sentiment whatsoever. I think you can have an amazing game. You just have to have a group of people that all understand the entire purpose that they're there is to tell an amazing story, not to goof off, not to, have their character be the most powerful thing in the world. Amazing stories have triumph and loss, and conflict and periods of decompression and things like that. It's just like music. Music, by definition, is a combination of dissonance and harmony, where we feel the dissonance, and the dissonance makes us tense, and then the resolution into the harmony makes us relaxed. And that is the entirety of music at its most basic form, is you're going from dissonance to harmony to dissonance to harmony. And that pull of tension to release is why people enjoy music. And that's what storytelling should be. You should have conflict and release, and you should have times when they're victorious and times when things go poorly. And the heroes can't always win, and the heroes can't always lose. And the villains can't always win, and the villains can't always lose. And not every villain has to always be a villain. And in general, villains don't see themselves as evil. They don't see themselves as the bad guy. They have their own motivations, and everything that they do makes perfect sense to them, and they are doing exactly what they think is best for their particular goal, not because they're evil fuckheads. So, yes, if you want to be successful, create a successful Twitch stream or something like that, study storytelling, 100%. Read famous authors, dissect their work, see the techniques that they use, listen to the authors speak. Patrick Rothfuss speaks about writing on a fairly regular basis. I've been privileged enough to listen to Ed Greenwood talk about it, and Ari Salvatore. And I've read things by, like, Raymond D. Feist is my favorite author. Look up and try and attend panels and things like that where you can ask authors, what do you use? What are the techniques that you learned to craft stories? Because a lot of times the techniques themselves are not incredibly difficult. They don't require, years and years and years and years of experience. They just require practice, and they require understanding what they are. So anyway, that's my little rant for today. This is probably the longest Daily December I've done in a very long time. Yeah, we're at 35 minutes now. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I've gotten to the point where I'm getting kind of loopy because the Valium is taking full effect. So I'm going to leave you with that. Again, that Bronzgo, if you're actually watching this, thank you very much. I sincerely appreciate you watching. If you guys have any comments or anything, leave them in the comments below. Like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. I am going to go pass out. All right? So, bye-bye.